Okay, so I've noticed a trend on YouTube. I've noticed a lot of these channels that I'm seeing are doing Magic the Gathering, so I figured I'll do this video as a startup. So one of the things that I want to start with is a video on deck building. So most decks, excuse me while I pull one out here. Most decks will be anywhere from a 25-35 to a 30-30 split. Some of them, if they're brave, they'll go 20-40. My personal recommendation would be either 25-35, or if you're, wanting to make sure you're not going to get screwed on lands, or that you're not going to get all your land cards before you get all your creatures and stuff, go 30-30. So, the rules have changed. Initially, when I started playing about 2 years ago, the rules were you could have a maximum of 60 cards in a deck for it to be tournament legal. The rulings on that have changed. So as long as you can sit and shuffle a deck of cards, your deck, right? This is a standard black deck. It's nothing special. So as long as I can sit and do that with it, get a clean shuffle, I can sit and play it in tournament. The minimum is 60. So then you get into ratios. Well, how many enchantments or how many planeswalkers or creatures or spells do I have in a deck? And so that is what the beginning of this video is going to cover. Because I know a lot of you guys have, well, if you're watching this video, you're probably either A, new to the game, or B, you've been playing for a little bit and you want to just improve your strategy a little bit. So I'm going to go over my black build because it's a fairly decent build, and provided you're not playing advanced players, it should hold up, right? So I have a 25-35 land build. So 25 lands to 35 non-lands. So of said 35 lands, I have creatures, I have sorceries, I have instants. It's all a mix of things. And I have one planeswalker. Okay, so I'm going to start with my enchantments for this deck because I have a very limited number of them. So I will start with Grass Harvest, right? Zombies you control have menace. Well, you'll see why later on when I go through the deck build as to why that's important. And then I have Retreat to aggro, Landfall. Whenever a land in its battlefield under your control, choose one. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Or each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I have Font of Return. It's a 2-mana enchantment that for 4, sack it, return up to 3 target creatures from your graveyard to your hand. So it's return. And then I have Liliana's Caress. This is a fun one because everybody that I've seen play against this card often forgets about it. They're like, oh, whatever, it's, But then they wind up discarding their hand, or they wind up playing something that causes them to discard cards, and they lose life. So, really fun enchantment, really, really low mana cost, really nice in this deck. So, there's all our enchantments. Then we have our sorceries, right? So, we've got Sovereign's Bite. Target opponent loses 3 and you gain 3. I've got a Walk the Plank, destroy target non-merfolk creature. This is really nice in most decks. I've got 2 of them in this. I have one other that I'm going to wait until the very end to reveal because it goes along with a different card. Now into the creatures. I have a 2-headed zombie. It's a 4/2 with menace, and it plays for 4 mana. You'll notice a trend here shortly. I've got Hunted Dead. It's a 2/2. Whenever it enters battlefield, you put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Very nice because A, gives you something to block flyers with, and it really is kind of worth it because it's 2/2 that gives you a 1/1 flyer, which is not really that bad of a card. I've got Returned Reveler. When Returned Reveler dies, Each player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. It's kind of good for mill, but that's not what it's in here for. It's a 1/3, so it's a good blocker. I've got Hound of the Farbogs. Here's a fun one. Delirium. Hound of the Farbogs has menace as long as there are 4 or more cards among card types in your graveyard. A creature with menace can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. It's a 5/3 for 5 mana with Delirium. Not that big of a, not that bad or anything. I have 4 of these Dross Crocodiles. They are 5/1s for 4 mana. Utterly worth it. I've got a Servant of Timuret. Inspired, whenever it becomes untapped, each opponent loses 1 life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Now, I wanna bring something up, because a lot of people tell me that my Retreat to Hagra and Servant of Timuret do the same thing. They do not. This one, let's say I'm playing in a group game with 3 or 4 other people. This one will deal 3 damage, all total, and I will gain 3 rather than 1. This one will do 1 to everybody, but I'll only gain 1. There's a difference. Then I have Whale and Ghoul. It's a 1/3 for 2 mana. It enters the battlefield. You put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Kind of a mill for you. I've got Forsaken Drifters. When this dies, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. That could be useful with some other stuff that I have in here. Newsgraph Mob. This is a fun one. It's a 5/5 that plays for 6. However, whenever someone casts a spell, it pumps 2/2 tokens. So then, that leaves me with these 3 here. I've got Grim Guardian. It's a 1/4 constellation. Whenever this or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. It's a 1/4. So it's kind of a weak card for 3 mana, but it's a good ability. Then I've got Gravedigger. When Gravedigger enters battlefield, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. 3 mana, 2/2 zombie. Not too bad, right? And now I'm going to get into the non-zombie creatures I have, because I do have a few. I only have 1 that's not a zombie, and it is Eater of Hope. It is a 6/4 flyer that for a swamp, you can sacrifice another creature and it'll generate it, which, by the way, regeneration and returning from the graveyard are 2 entirely different abilities. I will put a video together on that, and I will put a link in the description for that. So for 3, you can sacrifice 2 other creatures and destroy target creature. So you can kind of flood the table with weak stuff, sack it, destroy some creatures, have a fun time. And now, the highlight of this entire deck. The amount of controversy that I have had over this card is ridiculous. So, it's Liliana Deathwielder. It is a 7 mana Planeswalker that comes in with 5 loyalty counters on it. Right? So, there's her. And then Liliana's Influence. Put a -1/-1 on each creature you don't control. That's really fun in a multi-person game. Hit a bunch of creatures, blow with their power, toughness, whatever. You may search your library and or graveyard for a card named Liliana Deathwielder. Reveal it, put it in your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. So in other words, this allows you to draw this from anywhere. Unless it's exiled. Of course, then there's nothing you can do about it. So this comes out with this. Or if you happen to draw this first, and they kill it, this allows you to bring it back. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why do you have 3 cards in that deck that are over 6 mana? So, Liliana Deathwielder, her +2 ability for 2 loyalty counters, you put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature. So let's say your opponent's just pummeling you with this big green creature. Oh look, now it's weaker. Then you've got -3, which is destroy a creature, with a -1/-1 counter on it. So, these 2 go hand in hand. Play this, start board wipe. And then, for 10, this is why she's in this deck. She plays for 7, comes out with 5. So, in 3 turns, you have access to her ultimate without murdering her. So for 10, return all creature cards from the graveyard to the battlefield. So that is, yeah, sure, you killed this entire, like, stack over here of cards, right? All of these from graveyard to battlefield for 0 mana. Well, minus a few. This doesn't go, although with this, you return that to your hand. So, the only reason that it's in here is because those two go together very nicely. So, that is my current black build. It needs a little bit of work though. Like I said, if you're going to play it, make sure that you play it against someone who's kind of newer to the game, doesn't really know what they're doing with their cards yet, because that way you're not going to get completely and totally screwed over. Now, something else I wanted to go over. When you deck list a deck, you want to go through every card, and card for card. When I deck list, I will arrange them by mana cost. So, 3, 4, 2, 1, you know, so on and so forth. Maybe even some zeros in there, whatever you happen to have in the deck. You deck list them by their mana cost. Now, something else I want to go over that I would like to share with you guys. There will be a link in the description because I'm going to cover my collection of valuables here shortly. And there will be a link in the description for that video because unfortunately I don't have time to do it now, but I'm going to do it later.